Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to begin the funeral service of Mr. Donald B. Arnold. We welcome those of you who are online and obviously those of you who are here. For the people that are at the graveside, please take a moment to be sure that your cell phones have been turned off. And Rabbi Michael Davis will be officiating. At this time, he's performing the sacred ceremony of Kriya, of tearing of the ribbon. Ladies and gentlemen that are here, well, we're going to ask the staff to just walk around. It's a little warm out here, so if you need some water, please take advantage of it.
I think I am going to sit down. I was as puzzled. What? I need this because I have back surgery. Oh, you too. Oh, oh God.
And at this time, we're going to begin the funeral service.
Dear friends and family, Rabbi Davis, we're going to begin with words of comfort that come down to us through the generations. You have it in the handout. Psalm 23, perhaps the most beloved of all the psalms and prayers from tradition. It's in the second panel. I just want to make a comment on the English, which we'll read in a moment after I chant the Hebrew. It's usually translated as it is here, as an affirmation. The Lord is my shepherd, he leads me, and so on. But I wanted to comment that reading the Hebrew of the Bible is poetic, it's ambiguous, it's open, it's wide. It can also be read equally correctly as an aspiration. May I walk by the still waters, and so on. So if you can read it as an affirmation today, I invite you to do so. If it resonates with your spirit at this moment as an aspiration, a place to get to, but not quite there now, that is appropriate too. Adonai roi lo echsar bino deshe yarbitzeni al mei menuchot yenaleni nafshi yeshovev yancheini v'maglei tzedek yancheini v'maglei tzedek leman shemo gam ki yelech begeitz al mavet lo yirara ki ata imadi shivtecha umishantecha hema yenachamuni taroch lefanai shulchan Orerai Di Shanta Vashemen Roshi Kosi Revaya Ach Tov Chesed Yirdefuni Kol Yemei Chayai Kol Yemei Chayai Veshavti Beveit Adonai Leyorech Yamim Adonai Roi Lo Echsar Adonai Roi Lo Echsar. Let us read together the 23rd Psalm. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. And if you'll permit me one more comment, I'll have 3 comments on the Hebrew. I gave you one already at the beginning. This is the biggest one. It's a reflection on the last line that we just read. I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Familiar words, right, that roll off our tongue that we've heard many times. But actually, there is a bit of a mismatch between the Hebrew and the English translation, because the Hebrew for I will dwell, as I chanted a moment ago at the end of the psalm, is given as Veshavti. But that's not what that word means. That word means I shall return. The word for I will dwell is V'yashavti. Hear the difference? Shavti, yashavti, one more syllable. So it should be translated as I shall return in the house of the Lord forever. And you can see why that translation hasn't worked forever, because you return to, right? Once you're there, you dwell in. You can't return in. Or perhaps you can. Perhaps there is a spiritual message here that comes through that the language itself can't really contain, but is there for us to find beneath the layers. And it's this, perhaps. As we go through our mortal journey, we will inevitably fall away from wholeness. That's how we're made. Whether it's physical well-being, emotional well-being, our relationships, our integrity, whatever it is, wherever we have a path of wholeness, we will fall away from that path as we move through the complexities and difficulties and richness of life. And when we hit those rough patches, what we can hope for, what we can set in store ahead of time, is to have these houses of the Lord, which is a rough way of getting at places which we can restore our soul and our wholeness. It can be a house of worship, could be your back garden, family, friends, music, art, whatever it is, those places that we nurture to be there for us along the way, houses of the Lord within which we can return. So we return in those houses of the Lord. And my hope and prayer for you is that this moment is one such house of the Lord, a place within which to begin to turn back to wholeness. One more reading from the tradition. It's traditional at this time of year, as summer begins to turn to fall, blessedly on a day like today, but with a bit of a bite sometimes, is that we return to the book of Ecclesiastes, which is a somber, sober appreciation of a life. And it's a letting go, surrender, perhaps the hardest thing to do. We're taught that this was King Solomon at the end of his days, who learned an extra measure, the wisest man of all. He learned a bit more at the end, the wisdom of surrender, of accepting that which our hearts refuse to accept. And he taught us in chapter 3 of the book of Ecclesiastes that there is a time for all things under heaven, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing, a time to plant and a time to uproot that which is planted, a time to tear down and a time to build up, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to grieve and a time to dance, a time to throw stones and a time to gather stones, a time to seek and a time to lose, a time to keep and a time to discard, a time to tear and a time to sow, a time to keep silence and a time to speak. And indeed, we have gathered in dignified silence. It's also a time to bring forward words from that silence, words of sweetness and blessing. And we're going to hear some words from loved ones, words from the heart. Before that, I want to invite us all to take a few moments of silence for private memories, reflections, a prayer if you like. Let's take a few moments of silence together. Let us come back together with a prayer for peace, or Seh Shalom. You can find it on the handout, the back panel, under the heading Kaddish. It's the last 2.5 lines, begins in the middle of the third to last line with a capital O. I'll lead you in song, and I invite you to sing out loud. If you know it, sing out loud. And if you don't, just fake it along with me. Oseh shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'imru, imru, amen. Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. 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 So we are going to hear stories, some, a little, of what we could possibly hear. And in listening to you, I couldn't help but reflect. Well, first of all, Don's profession as a hairdresser, owner of salons, I mean, it's something truly universal, right? You can say that pretty much universally, right? Maybe there are a few exceptions, but everybody gets haircuts. And everybody has memories of their first haircuts as kids, and some really deeply meaningful relationships come out of that. And it made me reflect on various levels. One is to reflect on my own, something I never speak about. I don't think I've ever spoken about this in public, but my own craft. Because I was trained as a cantor along as a rabbi, and training as a singer actually takes a lot longer than the 5 years it takes to become a rabbi. And there's something about singing. If anybody here is a singer, you might know this, or other practices that bring together mind and body in a way that are inseparable. You have to have the body to sing, but you have to have the mind. And through the body, you get to the mind. You can actually get more centered through the body. And through the mind, you get to the body. It's just this, there's the mind-body connection right there in the voice. And I think that getting a haircut is very similar to that, right? It's very intimate. Your body is being touched in ways that only loved ones touch you, or your doctor. But it's public, and a lot of talking goes on around that. So there's something in Hebrew that captures that, because the word in Hebrew, this is remarkable. I never reflected on this really until today. The word in Hebrew for to give a haircut and to tell a story is the exact same word. Saper. Sipur is a story. Sapar is a hairdresser. Mesaper, if you say mesaper, you could be, it's ambiguous out of context. It could be I'm telling you a story. It could be I'm cutting your hair. It could be both at the same time, which is often the case. So there's so much richness, which I don't want to touch on too much. Others are going to tell more. But just to sort of set that up, there's something sacred about that mind and body, about a safe place where people do unburden themselves, where you make people look good. And I think Pamela mentioned that it's so great to be part of a profession where almost invariably people leave feeling great about themselves, which they didn't when they came in. To be part of that transformation is amazing. You know, I want to become a hairdresser too now. It's just an amazing profession. So, and I know from experience that it's true. So we are going to hear from family. And I think we said, Claudia, you're going to go first. You can come on up. Do you want to go Stuart to go first? Okay, friend Stuart Gershon, where you come forward.
This is as low as it gets. I'm shrinking. It's okay?
It's good. It's perfect.
Okay. Hello, my name is Stuart. I'm a dear friend of Don. Okay.
It's off.
It's okay or it's off?
No, it's off. It's off.
Can everybody hear me? I guess so. My name is Stuart. I'm a dear friend of Donald for better than or close to 60 years. I guess at first I have to start by, it's kind of funny, but we both happen to like Seinfeld and we like The Simpsons. So I have to quote from one of Jerry's monologues. And Jerry said in one of his monologues, the greatest two fears, number one, the fear of public speaking. Number two, death. So he rationalized it and says, I guess people would rather die than speak. Well, today I'm compelled to tackle number one. So my friend Donnie, I met him back in like my early 20s. Weren't real friendly in the beginning. Went to work for him in a salon in Skokie, La Petite Chateau. Worked there many, many years. We became very friendly. We shared almost, I can't imagine. I mean, the experiences I had in that salon, I had, as a young hairdresser, I think it was almost terrifying. In my 20s, I was doing a woman's hair, and I'm squirting with my water bottle to wet the hair down, and I noticed water on the floor. I mean, what's this all about? I'm going like this and like this. A water bed broke. I'm 20-something years old. At that time, you bring ambulances. They called the ambulance. About 2 hours later, she gave birth at Skokie Valley Hospital. That's going way back. So with Donnie, I had all these experiences from his shop, the blizzard of '67, when I was trapped there, and I was the only one left, and I was buried. And Donnie was in the beginning just looking at his watch, figuring how much it was going to cost him to remove all the snow. So meanwhile, I'm there, and I was there for days, walking across to get food from the hospital so I'd have something to eat. And then I had the nerve to ask him for reception pay because I was stuck and I was answering the phones. It was something that was kind of a hit and miss kind of deal, and it just from there I just went on. I worked for a number of years with him, many other shops. We separated for a while, reunited, and then when he was single and living on Gulf Road, I spent almost every day. It either was breakfast or whatever. And Don had a habit with breakfast. The first thing he would do in the morning, he'd pick up the paper. I have to read the obituaries. I said, Don, please don't ruin my breakfast. I want to eat. I want to be happy. He said, it's the right thing to do. If somebody passes away, he said, I want to be able to honor them. And at that time, I was young, and you think you're invincible. So I thought, oh my God, and then the second thing he always did, as later on, was cut out the Sudoku puzzle, because it was a hobby of his. He would like to do that. He had, I would say, the capability of blending with anybody. He was a common man. He could fit in. I think his greatest skill, and with a hairdresser, it isn't just your work, it's you as a person. And I think people realize that you're only human. You have good days and you have bad days. And with Donnie, he just gave it his all. He did the best he could. And his customers were loyal to him, as well as his peers. I don't know very many hairdressers that dislike Donnie. So years go by, and he found a woman that he was engaged with, and unfortunately she passed away, Janice, and very sad. And after that, he went through a part where he was alone for a period of time. And then we got into different things, and along the way came a sport came pickleball. So pickleball, why is pickleball so important? Well, pickleball was important because there was a lot of people that were new at the game, and I wasn't that new, and there was newbies coming. So I had a habit of taking a newbie and working with them a little bit while the others were playing. I'd like to give back. So who was my newbie? Dale. Well, Dale was a challenge. Needless to say, hi, Barry. Yeah, so Barry was playing at that time too, and Carol. And so I went over to, I was practicing with a little bit, and I wanted to play. So who steps in my place? Donnie. So Donnie's dinking with her. Dinking is it's called a little soft. It looks almost silly, but it's a big part of the game. So he's dinking with her. And at the end of the night, I said something to Barry about, is she single? Could I give her his phone number or whatever? He said, I think she's dating somebody. I stayed out of it. So Donnie asked her. And what did Dale say? No. So the following week, she comes back and she goes, you know what, that was silly. And she gives him the number. And I guess it was a pickleball romance. That's what happened. So, yeah. So my friend Donnie, the one that I spent this and this and this time with, now had somebody else to occupy his time. But we still always remained friendly. He will always be a friend and deep in my heart. And as time goes on, I met him for breakfast. He's still the obituaries, it was still the Sudoku. Everything was the same. And then, I can't believe it, Donnie always had a second apartment. The second apartment was the trunk of his car. He had more stuff in that car. Donnie, I got to get some perm lotion. Oh, no, I have it. It was here. Donnie, then I see a brand new shirt I saw him wear once. It was there. It's almost like he lived out of his house in his car. He was always prepared for everything like that. Well, sooner or later, it happens to everybody. You're mortal. He turned ill. He became sick. Ended up being hospitalized at Northwestern. And I said to Dale, is it okay if I come and see him? I think he'll be uplifting. So I went down to Northwestern. At that time, he could still talk. He could still eat, swallow food. He was soft food. But then he developed a problem where he couldn't swallow anymore. So things became 1 week, and then I'd see him like 10 days later. It was worse. Then I saw him another 10 days later. It was still worse. And unfortunately, I was so blessed to see him on that day, because I'll never forget, it was a Wednesday. I had just finished playing My Pickle. It's a silly name. Anyway, I went downtown, and he talked to me, and that's the last time he talked to anybody. He was put in intensive care. And then from that time on, I kept in contact with Dale almost daily, just to see how he was doing, whatever, even though I knew that his time was coming. His time was coming. And then finally, when I got the call Tuesday morning that he had passed, I have to say I was relieved, and it hadn't settled in quite yet. So, as it was, Wednesday came. I went about my things, and I called Dale in the morning, and she said to me, would you like to see Donnie? And I said, yes, I do. I want to have some closure. So I went over there, and Dale was by herself. I walked in with her. And I'm glad I did, because she really needed somebody with her. It was like we stood over him, and to be quite honest, she said, it does not look like him. And I said, you're right. It was, to me, surreal. It's all I could say. It was just surreal. Then his cousin Claudia came with her husband Greg, and we stayed for about an hour. Went home. I had sent I don't read emails usually. I don't read obituaries. That's what I should say. Prior to seeing Donnie in the funeral home, Alice said, have you read the obituary? I have not. And it was around 3:30. I read the obituary, and Mark, I cannot tell you how beautifully written it was. Absolutely. So I shared it with my friend Buddy. I texted him, and he texted me back. He says, very nice. It said it all. Later that night, Dale asked me to call another friend of his, Bob Gold, to ask him to be a pallbearer. Bob called me back. We were talking for a while and everything. And I was reading the obituary. He asked me to read it. And I didn't realize Mark's last name was Gold. So I asked Bob if he knew Mark, and it's a long shot. And he said, no, he didn't. But he agreed how beautiful. Actually, I have to say the obituary was gold. It really was. So that's about all I really have to say. I have to say that in closing, my wife Alice I have an older son, Andrew, who's 53. A younger son, Eddie, who's 46. My son, who's 53, is very corporate, lives in Florida, strictly corporate. My son, Edward, lives in the city, the other spectrum, artsy-fartsy. That's the way I have to put it. He's a designer, he's a singer, he's a songwriter. I never could understand a word he sings. His voice is very hard to understand, but as a father, I went and supported him to listen to some of his venue. So one song that resonates with me, he wrote a song called Let Me Down Easy, and it's about relationships, how they end, and to let me down easy and let me go easy. So in my heart, I say to Donnie, let me go easy. And here, thank you. Whoops.
It's on your shoulder.
On my shoulder. Got it. Almost. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Cousin Claudia, you want to come up? Come.
I'm tall. Thank you. First of all, on behalf of the family, I would like to thank each and every one of you for taking time out of your busy schedules to come and celebrate the life of Donnie, whom we all loved. And so thank you so much for being here. And on another note, I would like to thank Dale so much for all of the hours that she spent holding Donnie's hand, giving him encouraging words, all the time spent there with him every single day, 8-9 hours a day at the hospital with him. The family is so grateful that you did that. Thank you so much, Dale. And to Mark and Pam, thank you so much for supporting Dale with all the transportation, for writing the obituary, everything that you've done to support her. We're so grateful to you. I'm not much of a writer, but this is just a letter that I wrote to Donnie when I learned that he passed at 6 a.m, Tuesday morning. And so if you'll bear with me, I'm just going to read this. Dear Donnie, you are my favorite cousin. I have always looked up to you and would get so excited when I knew I was going to see you. You were always so loving and affectionate with this little girl. And she adored you. I remember when I was about 5 years old, you spent a week on my other grandparents' farm with me. We were sitting on the front porch of the old farmhouse, and you asked if you could brush my long red hair. You brushed it for such a long time, with such care, and you said, you know, I really like this. Maybe I'll become a hairdresser. I thought, how can you know what you want to be at the young age of 14? But you had a passion for doing hair the rest of your life. A few weeks ago, when you lost the ability to hold up your arms, you told me that it was killing you, that you couldn't do hair anymore. You were so sad. You loved your special customers and really loved the wonderful people that you've worked with for so long. And they loved you. You were the source of so much humor and fun. You were the favorite of everyone who knew you. You were such a good friend also. You loved your early morning breakfasts with your special buddies. You made regular phone calls to your old cohorts in crime like Marv in San Diego, and your time spent with your good buddy Stuart. You've been so loyal as a friend, as a brother to Melody, as an uncle to Tara, as a grandparent to Josh, Brett, and Jarrett, and you were so proud of those boys. as a dad to Richard, Jody, Julie, and as a cousin, and as a nephew, especially to my mom and dad. You looked more like my dad than any of us. My dad, Bill, adored you and loved being around you. I know how much you idolized him and his fun personality. You two were very much alike in so many ways. Always positive and upbeat. Everything was always great. And you had the family sense of humor, which kept us all laughing. Your stories of your young escapades with your buddies always kept us in stitches and questioning, how in the world did you ever get away with that stuff? My memories of you as I was growing up are not that many because of our age difference, but I remember fun family Thanksgiving dinners and Christmas Hanukkah dinners when at least 5 of us cousins would be together bonding and teasing each other. I remember you and Cousin Barry cutting high school to show up at my house in the middle of the day, asking my mom to make her famous fried chicken, which she was glad to do. And she never said, "Aren't you supposed to be in school?" I remember when you bought a red MG convertible, and me being a teenager, I was so excited when you came to take me for a ride in it. You always made me feel so special. I remember when I was very sick in the hospital at 16, you and Faith came to visit to tell me that you were expecting your baby, and I was so grateful that you cared enough to be there for me. You always stuck close to my family, and you've always felt like my big brother. And now my son Todd and grandchildren adore you and consider you their own. You did Mom and Dad's hair forever. They were always so grateful, except once in a while the color you put on Mom's hair, being just what you had lying around, would turn it bright orange or dark auburn or a little green. But she just went with it. But when you started coloring my hair and turned it green a couple of times, I got very involved in exactly what we were going to use on it. Thank God for Stripper. You colored my hair for the last time 8 weeks ago, and I didn't know that it would be the last time. I will miss you coming in and saying, "What's for breakfast?" and how big your eyes would get seeing Gary's stash of donuts and coffee cake and lemon cake, always saying, "I really shouldn't," as you were piling your plate full. And while we're waiting for my color to take, sitting at the counter giving tutorials on your iPhone. I'll miss you calling while Ubering, saying, "I'm stopping by for a potty break. What kind of snacks do you have?" I'll miss our special birthday dinners for 5 of us every March when we exchange funny cards and wear silly tiaras. I'll miss going to dinner with you and Dale to your favorite places like Jameson's and having wine and cheese at your place beforehand. I didn't know when we met at your place for hors d'oeuvres 7 weeks ago and I saw the rash on your head that it would be the start of the last journey for you. I'll miss your big heart, your warm hugs and kisses, and your "I love you with all of my hearts." My life will have a big hole in it now, but your little cousin will always have some of the best smiles and chuckles thinking of you. I love you with all of my heart, Tani. Rest in peace.
As we take in these beautiful, heartfelt words, the family asked for a prayer that comes from the recently past high holidays, the Avinu Malkeinu. Among other things, it asks for an end of sickness and plague, pandemic, and a prayer for a good New Year, Shana Tova. Avinu Malkeinu, chatanu lefanecha. Avinu Malkeinu, shema kolenu. אבינו מלכנו חמול עלינו ויעלול עלינו וטפנו. אבינו מלכנו קלי דבר וחרב ורעב מעלינו. אבינו מלכנו קלי כל צר ומסטין מעלינו. אבינו מלכנו, אבינו מלכנו, כותבנו בספר חיים טובים. אבינו מלכנו חדש עלינו, חדש עלינו שנה טובה. אבינו מלכנו, אבינו מלכנו, אבינו מלכנו, חוננו ועננו, כי אין בנו מעשים. עשה עמנו צדקה וחסד, עשה עמנו צדקה וחסד, והושיענו. So one of the hard things here, I think, is that Don was living such a full life, going to the gym 5 days a week, his breakfast club at McDonald's, all the wonderful things we heard and so much more. And just this past summer, it looked like this would go on. Why wouldn't it? And then in just a few weeks, right, to be here, that's hard. I want to turn to really ancient tradition, perhaps for some comforts in this moment. That we're told that in the book of Genesis, right, the very beginning of our story as a civilization, as Jews, as a culture, that at the end of the book, we're told that Jacob got sick and called forward his children to bless them. And we're told that this was new, because until that time, people just got sick and died on the spot. There was no warning. And thus we get the end of Genesis, these beautiful blessings that Jacob had the time to give because he knew that death was coming. So these past 6, 7, 8 weeks or so were a time like that. And I'm been asked to share words written by his beloved niece Tara, and words that she wrote in the present tense because it was during this period where she knew that this was coming, and she could speak to him in the present tense to share today as we look back. I'm reading her words. My Uncle Donnie is my mom's brother, and I've adored him since I was little. I always tell him that he's my favorite uncle, and he always tells me that I'm his favorite niece. And we laugh because I'm his only niece, and he is my only uncle. My mom adopted me at 3 months old, and my uncle's recalling of the admiration he has for my mom for doing that warms my heart. My Uncle Donnie was a big guy with a big heart. He's taught me that living richly doesn't come from money, but from who you are as a person and what you intend to get from life. Being the coolest and funniest 84-year-old around, he's lived life to the fullest, He is a son, dad, brother, grandpa, uncle, cousin, partner, and friend. He is a regular gym goer. He parks in the retired veteran spot. Loves going to eat with friends and spending holidays and quality times with family. He has worked hard as a hairdresser and as an Uber driver. When I was 10, he pierced my ears and cut my hair without telling my mom. And at 84 years old, his mind is still as accurate as a GPS. Whenever I get a call from him on my phone, Uncle Donnie, as it pops up on her phone, it's in quotes, it lifts my spirits because, A, he is not a man of technology. I spent 2 hours teaching him how to set up his voicemail. And B, like almost every person of his generation, he always leaves a voice message. And C, it always includes some funny shenanigan. In his presence, whether near or far, I feel like he cares about me, and he has this quality to touch many in that same way. He doesn't care that us younger generations tease him about younger generation stuff. He soaks it all up and then shoots back with questions about the 1940s and the 1950s and has the last laugh when we know absolutely nothing. Loss has been a big part of Donnie's life, from his parents to his life partner Jan, who's being buried next to, his sister and his daughter. These events affected him greatly, but he never let them harden his heart and soul. He lets love in and pours love out. My favorite memories are me asking him about his childhood, parenthetically, siphoning gas out of cars to steal his dad's car. Driving around Chicago with my mom, it's the story, we don't know what actually happened. Driving around Chicago with my mom, us getting pizza with my husband, his big hugs, and him walking me down the aisle at my wedding. This is Tara speaking. Big hearts go big places, and I hope that in heaven, he is reunited with his loved ones, and that his love and memories guide us until we are reunited with him. We turn to the closing prayers. I invite you to please rise as you are able for the El Malei Rachamim, which you can find on the inside second panel beneath the 23rd Psalm. El Malei Rachamim Shochein Bamromim Hamtzei Menucha Nechaino Tachas Kanfei Ashechino Im Kedoshim Otehorim Kezohar Arakia Mazhirim Es Nishmas Yakireinu Sheholach Li'olamo Lochein bol rachamim yastirehu b'seisa knofov li'olamiyim v'yitzror b'tzror achayim es nishmosoi Adonai hu nachaloso v'yanuach v'shalom al mishkavo V'noimar Amen. O God, full of compassion, thou who dwellest on high, grant perfect rest beneath the sheltering wings of thy presence among the holy and pure who shine as the brightness of the firmament, and to the soul of Donald Barry Arnold, who has gone unto eternity. Lord of mercy, bring him under the cover of thy wings, and let his soul be bound up in the bond of eternal life. Be God's possession, and may his repose be peace. And we say, Amen. Please be seated.
Ladies and gentlemen, after his casket is placed in the grave and the cover of the vault has been placed, the rabbi will lead everybody in the mourner's Kaddish. Following that, for those of you who wish to come forward to place earth into the grave, you may do so. The tradition is to place 3 measures of earth without handing the shovel from person to person. Memorial contributions to the American Cancer Society in his memory would be appreciated, and that information is on the service folder. And for those of you who are watching online, all that information is on the website. Everyone here is invited to Jameson's Char House at 1331 West Dundee Road in Arlington Heights. As you exit the cemetery on Frontage Road, just turn right on Dundee Road, and that's where you'll find the restaurant. So after Kaddish, for those of you who are online, we will turn off the online portion, the live stream, and then everyone can come forward and place earth into the grave. And also, if you have a rose, you can place that as well. Just as a last and gentle reminder, if you haven't taken a moment to sign the registry, it's just on this side of the canopy. Please do so, because we're going to give it to the family right after the burial.
Our final words are the Kaddish, which you have in the handout, the Mourner's Kaddish. It's called the Mourner's Kaddish, but there's not one word of sadness or grief in it. Instead, it's a prayer of affirmation. It's a very old prayer in an old Jewish language, Aramaic. It's an affirmation of a certain set of beliefs in the divine. If that's meaningful to you, I invite you to respond amen to that. And if not, to affirm that which is true and enduring for you. And we do this standing with the mourners who will say the Kaddish with me. We're thinking of the family, grandchildren, Joshua and Brett and Jared, and Pamela with Mark, and uncle of Tara, cousin of Claudia with Gary, and we're thinking, of course, of his parents, Ruth and Louis, and his sister Melody, and children, Richard, Julie, and remembering Jody, and of course, first and foremost, Dale. I invite you to respond amen to the prayer. There are 4 places we say amen, which you can see in the handout. The cue in the Hebrew is ve'imru. I invite you to call out as loudly as you feel comfortable, so the family hears the warmth and strength of your beautiful voices enveloping them. Perhaps you want to come in closer so that we can sort of give them a virtual embrace as close as you feel comfortable. And I will, to remove any guesswork, I will raise my hand as we approach the amen, and the response is amen, just a call out. So you can follow in the handout, or my hand, or both, and we'll do it together. I invite the family to rise for the last time, as you're able, for the Kaddish. יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה, בעלמא דברך יראותי וימליך מלכותי, בחייכון וביומכון ובחיי תכל בית ישראל, בעגלה ובזמן קריב, ואמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מברך לעלם ולעלמי עלמיה, יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא, ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל, שמי דקודשה בריחו. לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, דאמירן בעלמא ואמרו אמן. יהי שלמה רבה מן שמיה, וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל, ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל, ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל, ואמרו amen. Our final act is to participate in the burial as we heard. I'll begin with adding soil from perhaps one of the most ancient Jewish cemeteries, known as the Mount of Olives on the hillside overlooking the heart of Jerusalem, a place, still a functioning cemetery, been there for millennia, and a place that Jews have been connected to for thousands of years, and billions of people around the world still hold sacred. Perhaps this stands as a symbol of our common humanity that we feel most keenly at this moment in time.
Ladies and gentlemen, we invite everyone to come and place earth into the grave, and this concludes the live streaming portion.
relative that doesn't have a road? Anybody?
Folks, you can use both sides here. Here, come over here. There you go, and you can place the rose in.
Oops, sorry.
Well, this is my wife. We've met before.
Bad circumstances, we only need
Wish it could be better.
Ladies and gentlemen, for those of you who wish to stay, you may place earth. Otherwise, you may return to your
We
cars.
look so
or
happy
you may
together.
We are happy. We've been married for 3 months now.
How about that? It's great.
11 years together, but 3 months married.
A long engagement.
No, a short
A
engagement,
short engagement.
a long courtship.
I had one of those too. A little bit of a long courtship. 5 years.
Okay. Yeah, that's nothing.
So, just like the 40 years married. That's not bad.
Yeah.
Anyways,
Well, may yours go on even longer.
I hope so. We do our best.
All right. You want to get more?
Okay.
If anybody needs a spritz of hand sanitizer, I have it here.
No, but I just have to hug gently. I'm sure I got
Ladies and gentlemen, after everybody has an opportunity to place earth, we are going to ask the gentleman to close the grave. If that is a disturbing image for you, I suggest you return to your cars. If not, please stay here.
the training.
Yeah, thank you for not saying it's a gift. It costs a lot of money.
I think that would be a great idea.
I don't do anything.
That takes a lot of work.
I play games on the computer.
That takes a lot of work. This society is every more. Thank you, Rabbi. She's in my computer. You're not happy occasion.
If they decide,
I do weddings too.
I will. I'm going to go tell them right now.
Celebrate.
Take care, Rabbi.
Thank you there. Good to see you. So, this is cool, interesting.
Really easy.
Sorry, I'll tell the story of this. My dad and I in Manchester used to go and buy this candy.
Yeah, we get that.
It brings memories back from 40 years ago.
It's interesting. I was in a shoot and I saw that candy.
Yeah, I've seen them in Israel. That's right. Yeah.
When we spent a lot of time getting the candy because here, these are good. Because I wanted something, a certain taste, but I didn't want like Inglewood to be.
Yes.
Yeah. Anyway.
I would eat these because before there was widespread social certification, hard boiled candies were like considered like okay. Anything that was kind of had gummy in it was gelatin.
Yeah, right.
It was hard boiled, so you didn't need the texture for it to eat it. So it was something really
So even if you hear gummies or something at the counter store,
yeah. You do cannabis?
so
I want to. I'm sorry.
it's
I
so
want to do a code thing, medical thing.
no, it's not anymore.
Oh,
But it's you know what it does? Takes it.
yeah. What's on yours?
So I went out and told her, it's like it's too much. But the tumor, I think I have dopamine.
Okay.
That's just for the tumor.
Does that make you sleepy or something?
No, I've always had a huge amount of energy. But I don't exercise.
Okay.
But it's but I don't sleep a lot in my life. So I mean,
So you're sleeping?